Hi, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel. I've got a really easy beginner's project for you, and that's these little nesting trays. Will only take you just a few minutes for each one of these. And the reason why you call them nesting is you can actually put them inside of each other. I'll show you how to make it from using square fabrics or from a rectangular shape of fabric. So let's get started. You can use fat quarters to make these little nesting trays. I'm using 2 fat quarters because I want my lining different than what's on the outside. But if you don't have any fat quarters or you can't find fat quarters and you want to make all of these little nesting trays, then you could purchase a ½ yard, and then you can use the same fabric on the inside as the outside. Your fat quarters are typically 18 inches wide by either 21 to 22 inches long this way. So I've brought mine front sides together. So it's the pretty sides come together, you're looking at the back sides. And I've already drawn out the different sizes I'm going to make, and I'll show you in a moment how to do it. But this is a 5-inch square, 5 by 5. This is a 9 by 9-inch square. This one here is a rectangle, 7 by 12. Here's another square, 7 by 7. So out of these 2 fat quarters or ½ yard, you can get 4, and actually you can get 5 because you could do one more 5 by 5 up here if you wanted to. The tools that I am using to draw my squares is I highly recommend that you purchase a ruler like this. It's an acrylic ruler. It's typically used for using a rotary cutter with it, but you don't have to use a rotary cutter. But I use this tool every single day to draw a variety of squares and rectangles. Now, for this demonstration, I'm just going to use this smaller one because the camera can get it all in at once. So now I'm going to show you how to draw your squares. I'm going to demonstrate how to make a 5-inch square. So I'm going to focus on these square rulers. You pick whatever size you want to make. So because I'm making the 5-inch square, I'm going to focus on this 5-inch line right here, and then this one right here. So this is important. So right now I've got my fabrics front sides together so I can cut them both the same size at the same time. So there's no problem matching the edges up. So I'm placing it down, and I'm going to just draw 2 sides right now. And I'm using just a ballpoint pen. You can use a fabric marker, but the ballpoint pen is not going to show at all on the outs through your front side of your fabric. So I'm going to draw a line from the 5-inch line up to this corner, and then across over this way to the 5-inch line. Now you need to press firmly down on top of your square ruler. Now I'm going to take my ruler, or turn your fabric, either one, and I'm going to place the 5-inch lines on my previously drawn lines right here, and go ahead and draw the other 2 sides. Now if you do not have a rotary cutter, you obviously want to draw your lines, and then before you cut, place straight pins on the edges to hold the fabric pieces together so that it doesn't slip while you're using scissors. But if you're doing it with a rotary cutter, you go ahead and you place it on your fabric, take your rotary cutter, cut this edge and then across this way. Then either turn the ruler or the fabric, either one, place those 5-inch lines back on the previously cut edges and cut your last 2 lines. You would do that whether you're doing a rectangle or a square. After you cut your 2 pieces of fabric out for your square or rectangle, then you need to cut your fleece out. You want to cut the fleece a ½ inch smaller than your square or rectangle. So for instance, on this 5 by 5 inch square, you'll cut a 4.5 inch square of fleece. Okay, so it's going to fit right there in the center. Over here on the 7 by 7 square, you'll cut a 6.5 inch square. On this rectangle that's 7 by 12, you'll cut it 6.5 by 11.5. And then for this 9 inch square, you'll cut an 8.5 inch square. So you can see you can get a lot of pieces just out of 2 fat quarters or a 1/2 yard of fabric. This is my fabric for the outside, and this is the lining fabric. So on the fabric for the outside, you want to place that piece of fleece on the back and center it within the square. So you should have about 1/4 inch of fabric extending out past the fleece. Then take your iron and follow package instructions for fusing it on. So you'll need a hot iron, and then you're going to leave it on anywhere between 10 and 15 seconds, leaving the iron on top to fuse it on. Then after that, then let it cool down for about a minute. Then place your outside fabric front side up, pretty side up. Take your lining, take pretty side, and bring it down on top. And line up all of your edges. Then place pins around all 4 sides. On one side, you want to leave a small little opening. So this pin is my starting place to begin stitching. And these 2 little pins right here reminds me that I need to stop stitching. So this way you don't close up all your edges. So you want to back stitch on each side of your opening. Stitch 1/4 inch seam all the way around. So when you come down to corners, stop 1/4 inch away from this edge, leave your needle down through your fabric, lift your presser foot, turn your fabric, and begin stitching down to the next corner. And always do that at all your corners, and then you won't lose your place. After stitching, then you want to go to all 4 corners and trim them down to where they're about 1/8 inch wide. Be careful not to cut into your stitch line because it will come apart. So I'm going to just trim a little bit off at an angle like that. I'm going to take a little bit more off on each side like this. And then after you do that, you're going to reach in between your opening and turn it front side out. After you've turned it front side out, then reach in through your opening with something that you can use to poke your corners out. So make sure they're all poked out. Then turn these edges in at your opening 1/4 inch. Go to your ironing board and press all of your edges flat. Then you're going to stitch 1/8 inch from this edge right along here around all 4 sides. So right now I have my lining side facing up. And then I'm going to take this edge and bring it over to this edge. So fold it over and line up those edges as best as you can and kind of finger press it just a little bit. And then I like using these little wonder clips. Because this is so thick, it's going to be a lot easier to work with it if you've got the wonder clips. So go ahead and place a clip along that edge. Now take a little ruler or a little seam gauge, which is what I like to call this tool, and I'm going to place the 1 inch line right there on that corner and line it up. And then I'm going to just take a straight pin, and I'm not going to go through all my layers, but I'm going to stick it right there like that and just kind of go through the top layer of the fabric. Then you're just going to stitch right along there, a nice straight line going from the top edge all the way down to this diagonal edge. So I've just finished stitching this corner. Now go straight over to the other corner and do the same thing. place a clip there to hold it, then mark that 1-inch line and stitched right along there. Now I'm going to open it up. I just finished stitching these 2 corners. I'm going to open it up and do the same thing on the other 2 corners. Fold it like that. Mark your 1-inch line and stitch across, then go to the other side and do the same thing. So you can see this little 5-inch square turns out really small. So how you're going to get the edges to look nice and to where they stand up like this is to take an iron. So you're going to squash your edge down a little bit. Okay, squash it down, and then I'm going to turn this. Take your iron and just hold it there and let it steam up really good. And then you would go around to all of your bottom edges like that. Now you'll notice one of these is sticking straight up like that. How I did that was I took one of the corners and I just pressed it in like that. Okay, and I just kind of push it down a little bit. Take your steam iron again and hold it there, because that steam will go all the way through. And then you would go around and do that to all 4 corners so that they stand up like that. When you are done, it should look like this. And what I've put inside of this really small one is I put my little wonder clips. Or you can even put straight pins. A friend of mine told me that in hers, where she keeps straight pins, she inserted a magnet in between the fabric layers, the lining and the fabric for the outside. She did that just before she stitched up that opening. And that way, if you should tip this over, it kept all the pins inside. Now, you'll notice that the bottoms on these are not very sturdy, especially the larger the tray is. As it gets bigger, it's going to be very flimsy. So here's a suggestion. You could insert cardboard in between the layers of this, or you could cut up from little plastic sheets, maybe from a plastic dinner plate, and insert it in there. But I found it almost impossible to stitch these corners if you try to do it that way. So the other option is to measure the bottom of your tray, cut a piece of cardboard or plastic, whatever one you want to do, cut some fabric out that's larger than your square of cardboard or plastic. Take some glue and then glue the edges down and then insert it into the tray. So here I've got it all in there and it's nice and sturdy. So if you wanted to put anything in there that is heavy, it's going to be able to handle it. So you could do that to all of your little nesting trays. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Now before you run out and start buying fabric, go through your scrap pile. I'm sure you have lots of scraps that you can make these little nesting trays out of. Now don't forget to follow me on Instagram and check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click on the thumbs up button. Don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. If you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red subscribe button down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Don't forget to click on the bell. I'm Cheryl, and this is a lot of mayonnaise. See you next time, and happy sewing!